in the United States, and what do you give a chance?
In the United States, the role of the president is elaborated in Article 2 of the Constitution. Article 2 states the role of the president very broadly. The executive power should be vested in the president. However, the Constitution lists clearly the requirements of the presidency. The president must be born in the United States, of at least 35 years of age, and must have lived in the United States for at least 14 years. In addition, Amendment 25 indicates how and who replaces the president in case of removal from office, death, resignation, or his inability to discharge the powers and duties of the said office.
Article 2, Section 2 also lists the powers of the president with its checks and balances. For example, the president appoints public ministers, but they must be approved by the Senate. The president can sign treaties, but he needs the approval of the Senate. The president is also considered the commander-in-chief. In the United States, the president is elected by electoral college as indicated in Article 2, Section 3, and Amendment 12 to ensure that a proper candidate is being selected. Currently, many states have passed legislation to ensure that the electoral college resembles the results of the popular vote.
The actual term prime minister was used in 1625 in France. The prime minister is the head of government and the head of the executive government, while the monarch or president in some systems has the head of state position. In the United Kingdom, the Queen remains commander-in-chief of the armed forces, except she has vested majority of power to the prime minister. The prime minister is also the face and voice of the United Kingdom's government. To be elected more often, the prime minister must first be a party leader in parliament. Once the party wins the general election, it automatically makes the leader the prime minister, as seen in David Cameron's race. A prime minister at times can take different roles within the government and parliament system. Winston Churchill was prime minister and minister of defense during World War II.
On February 64, John Jay argued that, quote, "We can infer that the president will always be among men who best understands their national's interests, promote those interests in whose reputation for integrity inspires and merits confidence." Quote, unquote. Therefore, for the founding fathers, there was not need for more requirements other than age, residency, and nationality. Since FDR, apart from Eisenhower, all presidents have a previous role in politics and government. It has become an unwritten tradition to have presidents who have either served as state governors, vice presidents, or senators. The advantage of this system is that it allows more citizens to participate and run for president. Nevertheless, today in the United States, a person running for president must have a certain amount of capital to be considered a competitor. Unlike a parliament system where the prime minister can enter office by several means, most prime ministers under the Westminster system have the requirement to be leaders of the largest party in parliament. A head of state is an elected official and public representative of the country. The head of state is an official leader of the country. In some countries like France, Germany, or Italy, head of state is referred to as president. But the functions are unceremonial. In a parliament system, the head of state is symbolic like Queen Elizabeth II. They are normally the first person to greet foreign visitors or ambassadors. In the United States, the president has both attributes from head of state and head of government. He has a ceremonial view, but also plays a role in policy making.
The head of state and head of government separation makes sense in a parliamentary system, since the prime minister is interconnected with parliament. In a presidential system, the president is head of state with a significant amount of power. The role of head of government is equally divided into three branches, being the executive, the legislative, and judicial. Thank you. We're now ready for follow-up questions.
Well, I guess my first follow-up question, going on the difference between the British system and our system, is the vote of no confidence. Would you guys support a constitutional amendment to change the term of the president from the fixed term limits, or fixed four-year terms, to a vote of no confidence system, or what are the advantages or disadvantages that you see in that?
Well, in my opinion, the having a four-year limit on the president, it gives a chance so that the president won't rerun again, and give other people or runners an opportunity to show what they can do for this country.
Also, if you were to change the terms, the four-year length term, I think it'd take a long process going through committees and trying to change that into a vote of no confidence. So, and plus, I believe the system is pretty well as serving for four-year terms.
What do you see as the advantages and disadvantages of having a president chosen by the people rather than by the legislature?
think that the president chosen by the people is a very good. I think it's a good idea because we have we are able to vote for what we want, and I think it's a good idea because if we don't have like in the parliament, they don't get to vote as much, and I think that we have good opportunity because we could vote for who we want, and if we don't like them, we don't need to vote for them.
Adding on to what Sylvia said, I believe that the framers wanted to strive away from this system that they had with just having the not people vote, and really we wanted to set ourselves apart. That's why we chose this system to have people vote for our president.
Adding on to what Ruben said, the reason we did that is we didn't want to repeat what was happening in Britain was a monarch. So we kind of assured that by having a limit on the presidency.
There have been a couple of times where you have referred to points in the Constitution and the people who wrote them. So my question has to do with the limitations of the Constitution itself. A Prime Minister's powers are not limited by a written Constitution, as you noted. What are the limits that the U.S. Constitution places on the powers of the United States presidents, other than the advice and consent that Sylvia brought up in the opening?
Well, like we said, in Article 2, it's very broad. It doesn't have such a limit. It only lists of what the president, what he must his age or his residency, how much he lived here for, just to become president. It doesn't say the limit of powers he has. I guess, in my opinion, the framers did this because time changes a lot, and the president must adapt to these changes. If there was such a limit in, let's say, when George Washington was president to when Obama was president, technology with, let's say, George Washington wasn't affecting Obama like it is right now.
Well, I guess sort of a follow-up question to the one I originally asked about the vote in no confidence system. President Clinton actually put out a new policy book a couple weeks ago about, and one of the things he proposed in it was a third non-consecutive term for presidents. Do you feel that could be beneficial to have a third term, or is the two-term limit where we should stick with, or even less than that? How do you feel about that potential?
Well, since really, if a president is good enough in that office and people really want to re-elect him a third term, then we should be able to, but really a 2-year term is really sufficient, and a third term would have more.
Well, adding on to what Ruben was saying, I disagree with him. Adding a 3rd-year term would, I guess, make the people want more terms, and that's not what the framers wanted. For example, George Washington was offered to be like the Emperor of the United States, and he declined it. He said, "No, that's not what we came here." He instead went back to being a farmer and his farm, and I think adding another term, that's not constitutional to me.
Oh, and to reflect my thoughts and to add on to what Jose said, also, if we added another term, I'm gonna go against my own opinion. So, adding a third term, it'd be like almost giving a president a monarch type of office, because if he really stays for that long, he'd be having too much time in office, and really we want to give opportunity to more people, and yeah.
Do you think that the do you think that the president should be required to appear before Congress on a regular schedule to answer questions the way prime ministers have to do in England?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Do you think that we ought to require that the president appear before Congress on a regular schedule to answer direct questions the way they do for prime ministers in England? I think we
And
just ran out of
we've hit
time.
time,
You're
but if,
saved
you
by
guys
the
would like
bell.
to- Right. Well, I guess it's time for our feedback from us. Dan?
Sure. I want to concentrate on a couple things you did very, very well. I mean, first of all, everybody participated, and I love to see that. The second thing I want to say is that your answers were thoughtful. I mean, you obviously were listening to the questions and wanted to respond in the way in which you had already pre-prepared, and that was obvious to me, and I really appreciate the thought that went behind those answers, especially when you're talking about what the framers preferred and how they didn't want a monarchy and that the people were getting what they wanted. Thought you were also very, very good about how you disagreed with each other, and then when you have a reversal of a position you have, don't be afraid to say, that's instructive to you in the sense that there's a subtle difference between what you heard first and what you responded to second. That's actually a very strong position to take, especially as you're talking about civics, because that's what we want our politicians to do. And then a caution that I would give you, you were all very consistent in terms of your message, and I'm thinking about the requirements of the Constitution versus the limitations of the Constitution, but there is a little bit of a difference there. And moving forward, it might be nice to study what that is exactly, because the age and the residency requirements and nationality are slightly different than the limitations on the power once you're in the position. But other than that, I would say good work.
I thought you did a very nice job with your opening statement. The content was good, and you really understood the concepts. I think you might want to try to give examples outside the written chapter of the book whenever you can. Anything that's going on, particularly at this time, that you think will fit the materials, would be really helpful. But I thought you did well, and had a good understanding of the materials and the concepts, so appreciate that.
I'll echo the sentiments of my colleagues here. I think you did a great job, especially with the opening statement. Everybody had their part in their heart, and did a great job with presenting that. I would echo the sentiment about some citations from current events as we go forward. And but I really appreciated how you connected the framers' intention with the question about the term limits and all that. So I know that it's something you're certainly capable of, and as we go on, see more of that. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.